Hello, everybody, and thanks for joining us on another episode of The BAM with Lori and Jenny. Today, we are super excited. We have an amazing mom, an amazing guest, Amy Wolff. Amy, we're so excited to have you on the show. Amy is not only a speaker, she also is a coach for other speakers. Amy started an amazing movement, which she's going to tell us about, that not only has changed the lives of people in the US, it has changed the lives of people worldwide. I'm going to kind of hold that in my pocket, and you're going to dive deeper into that. But first off, Amy, you are a mom, which we love, to two amazing daughters, and we're going to talk about that. Thanks for being on the show.
Oh, excited to be here. Love
Jenny, I want you to kick it off. I
Yeah.
want you to tell our listeners how you found Amy, and we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah, so I picked up a book called Infectious Generosity by Chris Anderson, and Amy's story was in that book. And one of the things, and obviously we're going to get a little bit more into your story, but what stuck with me is there's so many times I've been like, oh, I wish I could do something, right? Like there's a lot in this world that you feel like you need impact, or during COVID, when everybody was so down and feeling isolated, or with all the political stuff, it's like, I just want to do something to inspire, provide some hope, and the world's not such a bad place. And it feels like a lot. It feels like so much. And so every time I think about how I want to help, I feel overwhelmed with how to do it. And what I loved about your story is it was like you started with something so simple, and you just started with, you started small. You started with what you had, where you were, like whatever you could do. And then you just sat back and were like, okay, let's just see what happens. And so, I just think that the simplicity of it really spoke to me. And so right after I read that, I emailed you and I was like, I would love to talk to you.
Then I didn't hit reply for like 6 months, and you were so patient.
It all happens when it's supposed to happen.
Oh.
So it's all good. And actually you said something too about this. It's like, you got to let go of the outcome, right? You just have to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a funny story. So I was speaker coaching, doing a workshop on site with a client, and I checked my phone at a break. And the head of TEDx Portland, Dave Ray, said, "Hey, Amy, check your emails. There's an important email in your inbox." And I thought, this was very strange. So I did. I looked at my inbox, and it was an introduction of Dave and this other guy. And this other guy was saying, "Hey, this guy named Chris at TED is trying to get hold of you." And I'm so confused. I don't know where this is coming from. I don't know why. So after a couple exchanges later, email exchanges later, I get introduced to this guy named Chris. He wants to set up a phone call. We set up a phone call. And then I realize, I Google the name, and it is the head of TED, the owner of big mothership TED Talks. And I thought, my heart was beating fast. Like, oh my gosh, what does he want to do with me? I'm a nobody out of Newberg, Oregon. No one even knows where that is. And sure enough, I'm writing a book. We're trying to get a hold of you. We've been trying for a long time, and we need your permission. And my book, my manuscript gets turned in like 2 weeks, and I need you to fact check this story we want to use about you. He was an incredibly kind man, but it was the weirdest experience.
Did you actually were you like, is this spam? Is this legit? Did it take you a little bit to be like, really?
No, I believed it 100%. I just was so amazed. And I am still not sure how he found me. I'm assuming he doesn't watch every TED Talk posted online. Right. So I'm not sure how he found my TED Talk. I have no idea, actually, still to this day, how he found me, but then he did publish me in his book, which leads me to you.
Oh. Yes. And it was a great book, which, anytime you can read about stories of hope and, bringing something bright into the world, I think that's a good use of time.
Okay, now we've left the listeners hanging on what is this movement? What did Amy create? So Amy, I think if you could kind of, set the stage and tell everybody what it is that really sparked this movement.
Sure. In May 2017, I was sitting at a friend's house with my husband. All the young kids were wild upstairs in a playroom, which was always a very bad idea. We had a lot of kids. They were very young. But I remember we grabbed our mugs and sat on the couch, and one of them is a biology teacher in the school district, and said, "You guys wouldn't believe the suicide rates this year." And I don't remember the number, but I remember being just floored, like, oh My gosh, the conversation moved on, but I was just stuck. I had that desire, Jenny, like you said, to do something. The problem was I'm not a mental health expert. I personally haven't struggled with self-harm ideation. I don't work in the schools. There was really nothing I was qualified to do to help. But I'm a particularly stubborn person and I'm a doer. So I thought I have to do something. For years, I had this idea in the back of my head that I thought was so dumb, that of these big white signs with three black words, don't give up. And I had this in the back of my head for so long that I told my husband that night when we got home, this sounds wild, but I think we should print these yard signs. And so we did. It took a couple weeks to find someone who could order custom yard signs for us for pretty cheap. We ordered 20, and on a rainy Saturday morning, we stuck our two very young daughters at the time in their car seats in our car, and I loaded our trunk with these signs on the backs. All of them said, "Don't give up." On
So
the
they all
front,
said the same thing. They all said the same
yeah,
thing.
on the front, half of them said, "You are worthy of love." And the other half on the front of the signs said, "Your mistakes don't define you." And some of that was borrowed from a book by Brené Brown that our friend group had just read, The Gifts of Imperfection. It's my favorite of her books. So we put the signs in the trunk. My husband buckled in our daughters, and I just thought, this is the stupidest idea I have ever had. This will help nobody. Actually, the voice said, "Who do you think you are? Like, this is embarrassing that you thought this would do anything." But I'm super frugal, and we had just spent over $100 on custom yard signs. So we drove around Newburgh, our small town, and we knocked on stranger doors and took my daughters out of their car seats, hoping they would charm a stranger. I would disarm them in their skepticism. And we showed them the yard signs. There's no hashtag, there's no website. This isn't religious. This isn't an organization. It's not political. We're just a young family trying to do something in the wake of a lot of sad and hard in our community. Every person said yes. And
I love
we
when you say
Awesome.
no to that, despite your two daughters,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I will say, so your strength finder, I love Clifton Strengths
Yes.
from Gallup, and they're on your website. And you have, I think, belief is your number one, achiever, activator, communication, and woo. So belief is like the stubbornness, right? Your
Yeah.
achiever is like, I'm going to get this shit done.
Yes.
And then activators sometimes do before they think, which I also have that. And it can be frustrating, but I think of it as a superpower. And then you've got communication, and then woo, which is winning others over. So, I mean, all of those things are like the perfect blend for what you did.
You would see this through the lens of that, and you're right. You're 100% right. That's how I'm wired. I'm just so wired. So I remember we drove home, and I was thinking, has someone seen them yet? Has someone seen them now? Has someone seen them now? And I thought, even if people hate them, it's anonymous. Who cares? I have no skin in the game in that way. But within a couple hours, I had a friend reach out to me, a neighbor actually on Facebook, and said, "Hey, I'm not sure if this is you, but there's a community Facebook page and people are taking pictures of these yard signs. Did you put them out?" It took 24 hours for an admin to admit me into this Facebook group. And it was the longest 24 hours of my life because I wasn't sure what people's reactions were. And when I finally got permission to see the posts, there were so many. And they were things like, "I'm going through a divorce," or "I am struggling with self-harm," or I just got a medical diagnosis that's been hard. And what I realized is, because the messages were so vague, that people could see through the lens of their own suffering a moment of inspiring hope. Now, what these signs were not supposed to do is they don't fix depression.
Mhm.
They don't necessarily even change people's minds with self-harm. It wasn't meant to fix a problem. It was meant for people to encounter at the right moment, at the right time, the right message to say, "You're seen, you matter." We started adding messages. "You are enough." What else? "You got this." This positive cheering on. And then what happened is it exploded. People said, "We want these signs. Where can we buy them?" So my husband and I came out of the shadows. "Okay, we can buy more signs." And it spread. in 18 months to all 50 states and over 20 countries with more than just yard signs, multiple products, wristbands, pens, decals, all with the same messages and all at cost. I have a dream job. I love my day job as a speaker coach. This movement was accidental and we had no desire to make any money off of it. So we still sell all our products at cost and all volunteer run.
I love it.
Amy, I have so many questions, but one, I think we always have this inner, like you said, like a voice that's saying, you should do this, and we kind of push it down. What was that like moment where you were like, I'm going to go print the signs. I'm going to do this. Like, what was there something that happened?
Oh, I don't know if there was like a catalyst moment other than I have to do something. I have this stupid idea for the last few years. Let's just do it as a Hail Mary. And I hope it helps somebody. But to be honest, it almost sounds a little self-serving in the sense that how do I respond to my discomfort with the pain around me? I'm just going to do something and hope it helps. Like it actually is kind of self-serving in that sense. And that's actually, Jenny, what I love about that book about generosity is that sometimes there's a mix of intention and it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay to have a mix of intention. I've never really thought about that angle of our movement, but it really was a desperate Hail Mary attempt for me to try to do something meaningful. But I bet it was to do something with my pain too, to give it some sort of focus of grieving and lamenting for my community.
Well, it's a win-win, right? It helps you and it helps others is what your hope is.
Sure. And then it became like a second job, and I don't know how much it helped me, so much it took over my life. But that's okay. It did. It landed me a book, landed me a TED Talk. It has been beautiful for me too. But I think what I was surprised by is how quickly we started getting messages. We quickly started an Instagram account, a Facebook account, built a website overnight. People started sending us money to just donate product to schools or wherever. So we became a legal nonprofit only because people started sending us money. And I thought you should want us to have legal accountability. So we did that. And the stories were similar kind of to the first few weeks of people around the country had an encounter at just the right moment at the right time. And many stories we heard. I remember one a couple years into the movement. There was a family and their middle-aged son was really struggling with anxiety and depression. And they stopped hearing from him and they were pretty alarmed that he was missing. They were worried about his well-being. They called the police. They were trying to look for their son. And they found him at a cabin that the family was aware of. And when the police went there and talked to him, they said, "Are you okay? What's going on?" And he said, "I'm really struggling with self-harm ideation. But on the way out here to end my life, I saw a yard sign a mile away from the cabin. And it said, 'Don't give up.' And I realized that was my sign to hold on. And so I came here and you found me." And this story was shared. I can't even remember who ended up reaching out to us, if it was the family or him. But I just thought, this is so much bigger than a yard sign. Yeah, the yard sign sounds super cliche. The words are super cliche. I mean, it's fair to talk about toxic positivity. Like I get that. That yard signs don't solve people's pain. What they can do is facilitate a moment like that, where it disrupts enough, it's unexpected enough, it's simple enough that it can move someone's heart and soul.
Yeah, it can break that like pattern, like just a little shock to the system, right? Yeah, this is horrible that I cannot remember the author's name, and you might know, but it's I can even picture her, but it's something about magic, and it's basically about the idea that ideas come to us and like they're a gift, right? It's like, so you've got these like little inspirations and things like that, and you can either act on them or they can travel on to somebody else, right? And I just love the thought we get these as a little intuitive hit, and that's the universe speaking to you, like take action, do something with this. And I love that you did it, because so many of us don't do it because of all the things you talked about, the fear.
Yep.
No, I think that's awesome. So I have a question, Amy, before all of this happened. You're obviously a speaker and a coach. Were you a speaker like a speaking coach before? What were you doing? What was your day to day? What was your job?
Yeah, in 2011, I joined my dad's company that he started in the 90s. That is a speaker coaching firm. So my full-time job was speaker coaching one-on-one with senior executives at companies, preparing keynotes in front of thousands of people, to TED Talk speakers working on their TED Talks, to small group workshops for people who just wanted to get better at presenting at their regular internal meetings. So I was full time in the gig, traveling a lot, raising a young family, taught Sunday school at my church. I mean, just a pretty average life. And then this curveball of doing something that became something, and then this movement became another part of my family's life. So yeah, I don't have time for this. I don't have capacity for this. I'm not qualified for this. And it happened anyway.
Yeah. How did you balance it? Because it took off faster than you thought. So how did you end up balancing it? And I'm sure if you would have known how much it would take, you maybe wouldn't have started. So it's probably good you didn't know.
Yeah, maybe there's something to that, not knowing too far ahead of
Yeah.
how things will go. Well, for the first couple of years, it was sustainable. We did it out of our house. As soon as we got an order, we'd ship stuff out the door. My desk in my office was filled with product, and the garage had boxes in it. And then in 2019, our family went to Hawaii on our first kind of bigger vacation, the four of us. And while we were gone, I had a friend who was coming into my house and fulfilling orders in my absence. One day she texted me and said, "I'm so sorry. We ran out of product, but we did our best." And I thought, how did you run out of product? We had so much. And then I got an email from a dad out of Seattle, had bought a pack of our yard signs, put them around his daughter's school, and it caught media attention, local news, and then it got picked up, national news. And I scrolled through my inbox, and it was the Washington Post asking for an interview. It was people asking for our media kit. I had to Google media kit. I remember at midnight, my whole family was sleeping in our Maui condo, and I'm aghast. I don't know what to do. It hit the fan. We went viral. And that's when we realized something has got to change. It can't be out of my home office. I can't do orders before bus stop, after work, after bedtime. And so we found a small office to rent in our small town, moved to locations, could hand out keys to different volunteers so they weren't coming into my house, and started to just scale a little bit better, got shipping software, didn't have to hand write our shipping forms for our local mailroom anymore, and things picked up from there.
How volunteers do you have now?
Yeah, on Mondays it's my mom. She puts together orders. On Wednesday, it's a high school student named Brooke that she comes between classes and lacrosse and track and all the things she does. On Fridays, it's a local mom named Tabitha that I met because we are fellow soccer moms on the sidelines. And then it's me every once in a while jumping in as needed. Vanjie is a best friend from college. She lives in Washington, but does customer service through our emails and does custom orders. And Jessica is local. I went to high college with her, and she's our designer, and she orders our products.
With your current signs and stickers and wristbands.
So many things, stickers, wristbands, yeah.
Okay, everything. Are you constantly coming up with new sayings, or are you holding on to just kind of a couple key ones?
We get a lot of ideas emailed to us, and some of them are just too specific. What works is it's vague, that it can resonate with anyone, anywhere. I mean, we're not even really a mental health organization. We're not a suicide prevention organization. When people hear our story, they think along those lines, and that makes sense. It was the catalyst for why we did what we did. But the point of the signs are to be simple for anyone, anywhere. And so we've had big organizations reach out to us and want to partner, and we've said no. We've had an institution ask to sponsor a billboard on our behalf in downtown Portland, and I was so jazzed until they wanted their logo very small in the corner, and thought, no, we don't brand, we're not affiliated with anything. And it's kept the purity and the integrity of the movement, which is why I think it works. During COVID, we did have someone reach out to us and say, have you guys considered we're all in this together? And so we did launch that one in COVID. And we were all in this together hitting our pots and pans for all the nursing and medical staff at the
Yeah.
hospitals. For a few weeks, we were all in that together, and then we got divided pretty quickly. Funny story. I wrote my book in COVID. A book deal landed in my lap from an agent out of New York. It was very random after we went viral. And so I ended up writing it during COVID. And the last chapter was about this amazing progress in the human experience right now and the advancement. And I sent it to my editor, and she said, it sounds so tone deaf. We're closed down. People are scared. Like, I know. And she goes, I think you need to rewrite the whole last chapter. And I agreed. And when I wrote it, it was like our alcoholic distilleries are turning into hand sanitation, and our local boutique hotel in Portland became a shelter. And it was this chapter highlighting the beauty of humanity coming out in crisis. And I had a review when my book launched. I think it was Amazon. I can't remember. And it was, how unrealistic, how euphoric, rose-colored glasses was not that positive. And I wanted to say, but at first it was. When I wrote that, it was. We were all in this together. Yeah. And so it was an interesting snapshot into a moment of history that is the last chapter of my book.
I do find that interesting because we were all united for a brief moment, you know?
And we tend to do that in crisis, right? You think of 9/11 where we were all united, and then everyone has their different take on solutions and right answers and right responses. But there does seem to be this window where the pain does unite us in a unique way.
Mm-hmm. And the name of your book is Signs of Hope, correct?
Yes. And my publisher said, you've got to put love in the title. Hope doesn't really sell. And you know what? I should have listened. They were right. Hope's not a great seller in the title.
But you never know. You had said something that I loved about your parents. So, you know, we talk about imposter syndrome and things like that, and I know you did have some, but one of the things that you said was that you were very lucky that your parents instilled in you, like, that you are worthy, that, you know, you're confident and all, like, you're loved and all these things, and that you hoped that you would be able to do that for your girls. So tell us a little bit about, did you figure out their secret sauce, and have you been able to do that for your kids?
Yeah, I sit enough with other people's pain and stories that I recognize, whoa, my childhood, I'm so lucky. Mm-hmm. I have had traumatic experiences. In fact, I've had a lot of poor memories. Like I don't have a lot of great, just memory in general. And I went to therapy because I thought, is it a coping mechanism to trauma in my past, which we can talk about. And after going through my whole family of origin and how I was parented, and my counselor looked at me and said, I think you're good. I don't think it's related to your childhood trauma that you're blocking. I'm like, okay, I just have bad memory then. But I did the work. I was willing to get curious and excavate in the soil of all of my life. And I really did have not a perfect, but a wonderful childhood. And I think I can boil it down to, and this definitely translates to my parenting. Did I feel like I had to earn my love? No, of my parents. Did I feel like I could lose the love of my parents? No, I couldn't lose it. I couldn't earn it, because some people are wired differently, right? We're going to try to earn it, or there's shame and we're going to lose it. But neither was the case. My parents loved me unconditionally. And so one of the things people, ask about motherhood and what are your goals is in parenting. And at the end of the day, do my girls know they can't lose it and they can't earn it? That's my litmus test. It's a very actually simple, like maybe the bar is low for me. Maybe that's it. Like that, how can I equip them with that kind of security? And I'm a person of faith. And so part of it too is I feel that from God myself. And so can I give a human experience to my children in our human relationships, we can offer this to each other too. You can't earn it. You can't lose it. Yeah. And so I think it kind of comes, to be honest, from that source of my life. And I want to model that to my kids and my human relationships too. So my parents gave that to me. I try to give that to my kiddos. In fact, fun fact, my parents right now are boarding a cruise ship with my daughters. School just got out. They're in the Bahamas on a Disney cruise. But this is beautiful. Are you ready? My mom brought a lot of Don't Give Up wristbands with them and gave each of them 5 wristbands and said, your assignment over the next 5 days on this cruise ship is to notice someone and hand out the wristbands. And so
Oh,
this eyes wide open to people, to not
yeah.
get so, and teens, preteens, this is where we're
Empathy.
at. To
Yes,
keep your eyes
empathy.
open and notice people is a thing, to get outside your own
Mhm.
worlds. And so my mom gave them a mission even on vacation to pass out
I
hope and
love
love.
it.
Are your parents available to take our children on vacation?
I know.
We sign up for that. I'm
People said,
in.
"What are you going to do with your time? Are you and your husband going to go on a trip?" No, we have work.
Yeah, yeah.
You still get your own vacation, right? Like kind of this different kind of
It
experience that now
is.
you get to, have your evenings where you can
Yes.
have a conversation
Yeah.
without mom, 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 mom. And
Yep.
you're like, what? You sit there and you're like
Or you
waiting
can
for
even work. Like you can work, but you don't feel guilty that you're working.
Yes.
You don't do out, you know? So yeah, there's something to be said about it.
So, what do your girls think of, what you've created, what you've done? Obviously, they've seen and been a part of it from, being in the car from your first, obviously they were little, but,
Oh yeah.
what's their feedback been to you? And, they're, I'm sure, just so excited to be a part of it, but to see your success and the change that
Yeah.
you've been able to put out there.
Yeah, they were front row seat, well, back row from the car that
Yeah.
day, but front row seat to really this kind of beautiful example, Jenny, like you said, of doing something small, seemingly insignificant, but then watching the impact of it. They are so funny. They used to say that, "Oh, Mom, you're so famous. You're,
Yeah.
these TV interviews and this book deal and this TED Talk, you're so famous." And I'll say, "I'll claim Newburgh famous, which is our small town of 25,000 people. Like most people here know me as the sign lady. So I'll claim Newburgh famous, but the poor kids, they have a false sense of my significance in the world." But yeah, they're beautiful, compassionate kids, but they're also very normal. This sounds so cheesy, and it is. But every day when they would get on the bus at the bus stop, I would yell out the window, "Be light to the world," which is so cheesy. But the idea is eyes wide open to
Yeah.
the person who's quieter in class, to the person who doesn't have a partner. Stay sensitive, stay tender. Don't bury your head down into the regular stuff. And that goes for us too.
Absolutely. And I think honestly, it is a good daily reminder because we don't notice. How many times have you just even like driven somewhere and you have no idea how you got there? We just put blinders on and
Yes.
we go about our business.
Mine is parking. I mean, every time I swear I park in a parking lot, I am so busy trying to think of the other 50 things, like I'm getting to the store, what is my kid doing, trying to have a conversation, text message going off, and I'm like, go into the store and I come out and I have no idea where I parked. And maybe that's premenopause because I feel like I forget a lot of things. It's crazy how distracted we are and being present. And I love how you say, with your girls, like having the wristbands to give out, because it takes them out of their own head and it makes them more compassionate and more sensitive and more aware of everyone else's feelings, and I think as parents, we really, want our children to be observant. And, one of my sons is 8 and the world kind of revolves around him, but he's to the point now where he's starting to realize, like, other people have feelings too, although you've told them this their whole entire life. But, I think it's just a constant reminder of, like, how do you think these other people are feeling, or how, their emotions, the way that they
Yeah.
look, or the way that they're acting like other people. I always say moms have feelings too. I like to remind him that,
Yes.
we do, we're people, although we're moms, like we are emotional. And sometimes, things hurt our feelings and sometimes things make us happy. But I think a constant reminder, especially when kids are growing and developing, to just remind them, like, hey, be aware of everyone else and their feelings too.
I want to go back because you talked a little bit about your family, and I know that you did have a big event in your life, a traumatic event in your life. Your brother passed away, and you were 14 and he was 18. Is that correct?
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So would you mind talking a little bit about that? And in particular, like, was that a catalyst to this, or how did that shape how you see the world and how you see people in your life and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, no, it shaped everything. So on August 9th, 1998, after Sunday school, my brother and his older friends, all 18, and me and a friend went out to a local lake to go swimming. And a bunch of them decided to swim across a little inlet of the lake. And even though my brother knew how to swim and was an athlete, it was too far and he got tired. So he turned around to come back with a friend, and that's when I heard commotion and splashing and yelling in the water. And that day, Jeremy drowned. And I was there on the shore to observe all of it. And so I had at 14 this moment of decision about many things. One, my life, I had to grow up quickly, I would say, asking some pretty big questions at 14 years old. But then also growing up in a community of faith, I kind of had some options on the table too, right? If this is the beacon of how we live, this way of life for us, either God doesn't exist after all, God is cruel, he exists, but he's just mean, or God is good and I will not get it this side of heaven. I just can't with this lens, this human lens. And so even at 14, having to discern and decide and to wrestle with some really big questions. I remember the first couple months, it was 3 weeks before I started as a freshman in high school. So it was a formative time in my life. Yeah. And I remember that fall actually being confused. And I was confused because I would say the word peace. I didn't have survivor's guilt. I didn't jump in to try to help, and I didn't feel bad about it. I had no fear of water that I could observe so far. I was sad, but it didn't take me over. And I felt confused that I wasn't crying as much as I thought I should be. And so I was really confused. And I remember talking to God in the bathtub at 14, going, give me tears, something's wrong. And now I have to remind my husband when we're in therapy and I'm bawling, like, this is God's answer. He softened my heart. He kept it tender. Careful what you ask for. I am a very emotional person. So fast forward, I was 15. I was sitting on my bed one night reading my Bible, which now that I have a 15-year-old, I'm like, how I felt initiative to read this ancient, confusing text. Yeah. But I was reading this ancient inspired text and read this story about a prophetess. Her name was Anna. She became a widow, and she found purpose in claiming God's goodness throughout the rest of her life, remaining a widow in the temple. And I thought, this is super strange. She went through loss. And there was a youth commentary in my Bible, and it said she decided to be God's spokesperson. In her pain, she believed the best was still yet to come. And there was this trust in the sovereignty. And I'm explaining this because it's my authentic experience in that moment, sitting on my bed, and I resolved, I'll do that, God. I'll join other people's pain. I'll be unafraid of other people's pain. Because even though, and I explain it like this, and so many listeners, and maybe you too would relate, there's this grief club you don't want to be a part of. Yeah. And you don't want to be alone. So I don't want to tell people, welcome to the club. I do want to say, hey, I get a level of your pain, particularly people who have lost siblings, particularly a teenager losing someone they love. These are things that I can personally offer as empathy to other people. And so God used me. And then, gosh, from 15 on, just this urgent, I don't know if I only have 3 more years of my life like I did, right? So there's this urgency, there's do something mentality, there's see a need, meet a need mentality. There's that achiever in me. I don't know if the Strengths Finder, if they say it's nurture or nature, but I really think some of the experience that I had formed that in me. Yeah. One of the questions I know you ask, because I've been listening to your podcast, I know some of the questions that you ask are, what are you the most proud of in your life? And to be honest, I was like zooming way out and inventorying my life. And pain and suffering has a way of being a crossroads. What are we going to do with it? And I feel really proud that I claimed my agency, even in a situation where I couldn't control the situation. This trauma happened to me, like no one's fault. But I took that and I turned the pain into a mission to show up in other people's pain however I could. And there's some spiritual bypassing that happens in my faith community, and I'm really resistant to it. Stop saying the thing, stop saying all this stuff. And so how can I show up in people's pain and lament with them instead of try to fix it? Yeah. And that has been on mission for me, to make my life count, take the action, do the thing, be unafraid of people's pain. And that started in August of 1998.
I mean,
Wow.
how mature, obviously, what you were dealing with, and obviously never dealing with that. There's just a lot going on, and being able to kind of really focus and find your mission and understand that and move forward with it. I think we've had a lot of guests on our show that, things have happened in their past that completely just show them to that very moment of now, which I think is incredible. Like from, what you experienced to what you've been able to do, not only being a teacher and a speaker, but then, creating these signs that ultimately, you would have never thought at 15 years old,
Yeah.
14 years old, that you were going to create this movement that would literally change people's lives. I mean, you knew you were going to do something, but you just didn't know yet what that was. So I find that so incredible with all the journeys we've listened to.
Your parents, I find, because you said something about, losing a child, parents, I think I would probably be like, oh my God, I'm going to be the helicopter parent that is your worst nightmare, and protect, protect, protect. And your parents, it sounds like, did not do that to you. They gave you the ability to still live your life and do what you wanted to do and all that kind of stuff. So tell me a little bit
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah, it's actually come up recently. Fast forward, I'm 42 years old now, so it's been a while. And my dad will say, even I think within the last year, it came up, like it was so hard when you walked out the door to go to the beach for the day with friends. Because I was 14, headed into freshman year of high school. I'm starting to want autonomy, and they
Yeah.
just wanted to insulate me and bubble wrap me, and they didn't. And what I find interesting now, being an adult, looking back hindsight, is how did I not catch it? How did I not see the angst? But
Yeah.
I had no sense of how hard it was for them to let me feel out this autonomy. So I don't know how they did it. I didn't know how hard it was for them at the time, but now I do.
And how is it for you as a parent? Do you ever have like those helicopter tendencies to like
Yeah.
keep them safe?
That's an interesting question. I don't think so. My 15-year-old just started driving. We could talk a whole podcast about teaching a teen how to drive. It's been successful. I will say we both high-fived the first drive we took. We did not yell at each other. We did not cry. Like she high-fived me, and I thought this is a good sign.
Yes.
But I think we're getting into what might feel a little more letting go and trusting. But really, I haven't sensed, even going swimming. They're going swimming with family friends at a lake, and I'm not
Yeah.
there. Like, it doesn't occur to me. I'm not a worrier by nature, but it doesn't occur to me to be worried so I think it hasn't translated in my parenting. I don't think.
Yeah. That's amazing and good for you. I get conflicted between two things, right? Like protect them, and then there's this part of me that's also like, when it's your time, it's your time. The best example I have is there was a guy that wrote, I think it was like that book, 10,001 Things to Do Before You Die. So he'd done all this like risky stuff, things that most people will never do. And he passed away. I saw it in that little blurb in People magazine one year, and it said he passed away because he slipped and fell in his bathroom floor. And I was like, that is proof to me that when it is your time, it is your time.
Right.
Yeah.
But then I still have this instinct to make sure the kid, protect the kids. So it's like this constant battle.
Mom instinct, though,
Yeah.
right? I mean, no matter, I think, how much we want our children to just go and do. I mean, there's always the voice in the back of our heads, like, okay, like, are they okay? Are they making the right choices? But it's giving them the opportunity to make the wrong choices, but in a little bit of a wrong choice, right?
Yeah.
Like to learn from those mistakes and to understand how that feels when you do make those mistakes. Or so Amy, I feel your I don't know, call it pain, but my 17-year-old stepson, he just started driving, and then a few months into it got in a car accident.
Oh no.
So, it was fine. But it was one of those life lessons, right?
Yeah.
Like it was a little mistake, and learning from that has been very impactful. And I think although you don't want your kids to have to go through that, it's also been something I think that's been very, if there's any good to it, just
Yeah.
learning that how much power you have behind the wheel, and how that not just impacts yourself but everyone around you. So it's definitely one of those life lessons. You don't wish that upon your children,
Yeah.
but when it happens, you hope that they can take that experience, hopefully learn from it, and make different and smarter choices.
This is why you don't buy 16-year-olds brand new cars. I'm just going to say they all get in a fender bender like pretty much immediately. I did the same thing, but I actually think I'm like, you know what, this is good, because it does. It's an instant reminder, and it could have been worse. And thank God it was just a little fender bender, but they have that instant reminder or lesson that, oh, this is kind of a big deal.
A couple years ago, I was coaching the CEO of Volvo America and Canada. Anyway, I got exposure into the inner workings of Volvo cars. And I remember coming home from a trip and nudging my husband, have we ever thought about buying one? They're so safe. And we did. We ended up buying one, and they gave me a little bit of a discount, which is lovely. And I was driving with my daughter last week, and we pulled up to a birthday party or something, and someone comes out and says, you're letting her drive this car? And I thought, this car will slam on the brakes if she doesn't hit her brakes fast enough. This is it tightens your seatbelt. Like, this is the safest car for my daughter. So although she's not going to own one at 16, but she is learning on a nice, safer, very, very, very safe car, which gives me some peace of mind.
My brother, I credit a Volvo. It was an old Volvo station wagon. It was very old by the time he had it. I credit that for saving his life. He was T-boned in one. And I'm not
in their headquarters in Mahwah, New Jersey. There is a gallery, and it has glass walls, and it's beautiful. It's like an art gallery. It's small, but it's in the middle of the hallway, and there's massive portraits, maybe 20 portraits of all different kinds of people. And finally, the second visit there, I asked one, what is that? Who are these people? Are they founders? Are they? And they said, those are real people whose lives were saved because of Volvo technology.
Oh,
and I thought, do people know this exists? Like, this is your mission, and you walk by them every day. Like, it was so beautiful. And I thought, surely your PR person has posted this somewhere. And I don't know. Anyway, for those of you who are with kid drivers, here's my plug. Volvo.
I love it.
They're going to have you back again. So, Amy, obviously you're busy. Your kids keep you busy. How do you disconnect? What do you do for fun? What's your go-to to, just have a little bit of time to yourself?
Oh, a lot of coffee shop dates with friends. Lots of dinners out with friends. I do girls' weekends away. So Jake kind of has his hunting trips every year, and I have my girlfriend trips every year, and we just have this beautiful balance and permission to do that. I will say, there are hard parts of my life. Parenting has been one of the easier ones. And so I actually really get along with my preteen and my teen. Knock on wood. We went through middle school unscathed. We have a really great partnership. And so I like being around my kids. Them being gone is a little bit weird, and also very good and important for me and my husband, right? To not just be parents. But I would probably say coffee shops, dinner out, girls' weekends away, and then a lot of Netflix. I just binged Netflix last night watching the show I wanted to watch.
And there's so many to choose from. Number one location for a girls' trip for you?
Oh, well, we go to the same spot every year. We go to Palm Springs. My other friends live in Spokane, Washington, Lake Oswego, Oregon, Bend, Oregon, and Marietta, California. So Palm Springs is this Pacific Northwest accessible spot, and it's generally pretty cheap, and it's hot. So we escape the rain and we go to the desert.
I love it.
So what's on tap next? What else are you working on? Do you have anything in the mix? I mean, you already wrote a book. You've already created a worldwide movement. Where do you go from here?
Yeah.
What else is on my bucket list?
What else is that little voice telling you to do?
Oh man, I am not a goal setter. I am actually kind of resistant to goals. So I function right in front of me, which is why do the thing, take the action. I'm not a
Yep.
long-term thinker. So when people
Yeah.
ask me sometimes, what are your goals for your business or what, I don't really have any. I just do the thing in front of me. So I don't know
Yeah.
what's next. I can be very specific in that in a couple weeks we are taking our kiddos for the first time to Rwanda, which is one of my favorite places on earth. They've
Amazing.
heard about it. I go pretty often. I haven't been since COVID, but finally the kids are coming. Jake, my husband, has been before. So we're going, what's coming next is an epic family vacation. And then we fly
Oh,
through Amsterdam on the way home. So we have 3 or 4 days in Amsterdam on the way home too. So we're really looking forward to a really life-changing
That's
experience for them.
oh yeah.
that's huge. How long
Oh,
are you staying in Rwanda?
We'll be in Rwanda 9 days and then Amsterdam
Okay.
3 or 4. And it's mostly touristy stuff. Of course, we'll do safari. But one of the things that caught my heart in going there when I was a college student was the aftermath of a genocide and people healing and what does forgiveness look like. And it's pretty profound. And so we're trying to figure out what's appropriate for our 14 or 15-year-old and 11-year-old. They know about it. Death is part of my story and losing Jeremy. They know about their uncle. They wear his t-shirts actually all the time. They're very tender about it. It's very sweet. They know that these friends in Rwanda are survivors and
mhm.
they've met them. They've visited us in the US. So they're aware of death and they're aware of the genocide. But do we go to the memorials? Normally
Yeah.
we sit with community groups of survivors and now also perpetrators. Their term is over in prison. They're being released back into the community. And now what? Now what do you
Yeah.
do? And so there's these community groups. Our friend has created a nonprofit to help people heal. And so there's this interesting dance and question of what's appropriate for our kiddos. And I think we can make some of those calls in countries, see how they're doing.
Yeah, they might tell you what they're,
Yeah.
I feel like our kids they're more resilient in some ways than we think they are, and they will show you what they need
Yeah.
or what they're ready for. Do you want to plug your friend's nonprofit?
Oh, it's called Good News International. And
Okay.
I don't think they might have a website. I don't even know. It's a grassroots Rwandan led
I love
organization.
it. Good for you.
So lovely. Amy, I just love everything about our conversation. I love everything about, what you've done and not only, the things that you've overcome, but just the things that you've helped other people overcome by, what has words we think in our head and putting them out there for people to visually see them and catch them at those moments of, trials in their life. It's just been so amazing. I'm so glad that Jenny found you in a book and that you responded to her email. I love that. And I'm really thankful that we got to have the opportunity to chat with you more today on the show.
I've been a part of many podcasts and I love it when it feels like a conversation and not an interview. And this is delightful conversation.
That's what we love to do. Just we're curious and we love to chat with people. And I swear I feel like I just threw a sign out to you and you responded. And so it's just like this, I don't know, synchronicity. I
Yeah.
love it. So thank you. It was so awesome.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you so much, Amy. We really appreciate having you on the show.
Thank you.